Good morning, everyone. Welcome to AI for Anyone Live, the weekly live show at the Human Stack, where we make AI accessible and actionable for nonprofits and social impact organizations. I'm Sami Zoss.
And I'm Tim Lockie. Today we are kicking off May I Be Human with a question that has to come first. What can only humans do? Not what can AI do, but what shouldn't it touch? What should it never touch? We're mapping the human layer live, the judgment, the trust, cultural knowledge, ethical calls, and we're figuring out which tasks AI should handle so that you can do more of what's you and irreplaceable. Sami, ready when you are.
Let's get into it. I think there's a ding there. I'm putting a ding there.
Where's the ding? I missed it.
Welcome back. How were the high seas there, my friend?
They were great. It was it was great. I was thinking about you on Wednesday as we were hanging out someplace in the Caribbean, which was really fun. Yeah.
It must be rough.
It was. It wasn't exactly rough seas, but the rest it was a really good time. I have to say, so I would never have thought I'm a cruising person, and I'm not. So, okay, but here's the thing. My wife and I have never made a decision we couldn't fight about. Right? You know what I mean? No, it's true. Anybody that's met us know that's true. And so,
that's awesome
for us, and we just have gotten to the place where we need to just be realistic about what works, and that takes almost all of the decisions out, and it just works. So there you go. Speaking of May I Be Human, you just gotta know who you are, right?
So true.
Yeah,
it's so true. I love it. I'm commenting on our post here that you're back.
Oh, good. Cool.
Tim's back. Last week I did have Megan pop on last minute.
I heard. I was so excited to hear that. That is so great.
It was so fun to have her, and as a longtime listener, right? Like she's on literally every episode.
I know.
Watching with us. It was so fun because we get to talk to her afterwards most weeks at Upskillerator. So we get a chance to kind of debrief with her and play and explore with her, but for others to kind of hear about what she's doing with Roots Ethiopia, which is just so fun to hear her passion and her story over and over again. But then also Megan has been a practitioner in this for over a year. I mean, well over a year, but I mean publicly for over a year.
Yeah.
And we were still together, blowing our own minds, right? It was so fun. Sheets Canvas definitely stole the show. So what we made was this grants tracker in Google Sheets, because it was kind of I took my bonus episode, so we just had some fun with it. And we made a grant tracker and then turned it into an executive dashboard and ended with a success engine, right? So we took my favorite thing, which is artifacts, and combined it with Sheets, which is a new feature in Gemini where you can do a canvas right over Sheets, and showed how you could collaborate on it. And that was literally only the last 15 minutes of the episode. It's funny because it wasn't even the main part of the episode. The episode was really exploring what's new in Gemini. But I knew once Megan said that she would hop on that we would want to spend some time on that. And it was so fun to do it. So I love, love, love having Megan on. Loved seeing her there. She did say something, and I posted even on LinkedIn. She said something that's really been stuck with me all week, which is efficiency for efficiency's sake isn't progress. Which, what a beautiful lead-in for the entirety of the month, right?
Absolutely.
And of course, coming from Megan, I expect nothing less. She's so insightful and so good at what she does. But I mean, I think her point, she also made, she made a point about equity and how the context isn't always our own, right? We were talking through how she's got to play with things that are accessible to her team over in Ethiopia because she is US based.
Right.
And it was just an awesome level set for me, because I think AI is a huge equalizer across the world, really. But we forget that even within a great equalizer, access continues to be a barrier to that equity. It was just very it was very humbling to also remind ourselves that look, we might have Claude and this awesome, stuff within here, but are the people who need it getting the access? And if not, how do we help them use what they have at their disposal, right? So
what's
so fun,
so interesting about that part of the conversation, and it's very human, it's like the most human-y thing ever, is that the nonprofit space has so many conflicts with itself about this, right? Is it ethical to use AI? Is coming up all the time. I'm doing a thing with Hewlett Foundation on exactly that question. And at the same time, there's an access question, which is we feel like it's unfair that it's not equally accessible to people. And both of those are true, but they're also contradictory, right? In some ways. And so I feel like it's actually helpful for us to just think through the elements of that. And yeah, I spoke in Africa a couple of years ago at a ITC4D conference, which is around information connectivity. And one of the stats that I came back with that was very clear is that there's 8x less bandwidth or 8x more bandwidth in the West. So things run 8 times faster, and it's easy to forget that. Really, really easy to forget that. So I love that Megan is bringing that perspective.
If I could for just a moment. You were saying something really profound, so I didn't want to interrupt it. But my mind immediately went to, why are we called the West? Because the world's a globe. I get so confused.
I did not expect you to go meta on that kind of a question this morning, but I'm here for
I fight with people in Ohio about whether or not they're in the Midwest. Often. Yeah, right. And so it's just part of a larger conversation I have with myself all the time. But yeah, you said West in my brain. For those that don't have ADHD, welcome.
So true. I feel like this is just a picture of what it's like if you've got ADHD. It's going to be that way.
So mad.
So that's awesome that Megan was here. I'm really excited about that. I'm also a little bit disappointed that I missed the episode where she was the guest. But
well, I think now that we got her in once, I think it's going to be much easier to get her in again. So before we kind of get off into the rest of the episode, just want to call out one last thing that Megan and I kind of landed on, which is if you're framing everything, and I had a conversation literally just yesterday, Tim, with a wonderful, wonderful friend from college who I haven't seen for quite a while. And she worked for a really large organization that I didn't realize this idea that AI is taking human jobs is getting bigger. It's not getting smaller. And I forget that I live in a world where AI helps me do more, helps the people around me do more, not helps my org pay less, I guess. Is there, you know what I mean? We don't have humans in our team to necessarily be replacing like that. We're smaller teams. And something that we said last week was do better before you do more. And what I love about the nonprofit space, and I really hope that this rings true across most of our nonprofits, particularly any below those institutional levels. I know the higher eds and hospitals of the world, they're in a different boat, and I don't want to mesh us all together. But I really hope that it's always do better before you do more, not do better before you pay less. And I didn't even realize until I was having that conversation yesterday how impactful our frame, my blinders are so solid that I forget, and I do need to remind myself sometimes, there is a whole other part of this world that AI is literally eating jobs, and not in a way that you or I would ever recommend. It's always I always am baffled. I'm like, oh my gosh, imagine if you kept those people and then just could do that much more. In my mind's oh my God, you're nuts. And if I'm thinking from my MBA perspective of your fiduciary responsibility is to the shareholders always with a for-profit institution, which is completely fair. It's just the world that we live in, right? If I'm a shareholder, pissed that you're getting rid of people, not excited, because AI allows you to do more. You can deliver more. You can deliver like, and I don't want to get into this again, efficiency for efficiency's sake, but I hadn't even thought about it in a long time about how people are using this as an excuse to pare down instead of ramp up. And I just can't relate to that mindset. I mean, you know me, I'm building like a pickleball operation system on the side because I'm like, hell, I can do it now. So it just didn't click with me. And that framing of do more or do better before you do more, I love that less isn't even part of that equation. And I love that that's sort of been our framing for AI for Anyone Live across the board. And it's certainly our framing for May as we talk about it's allowing the human to do more human things. And that's really what this month is all about. So just wanted to kind of highlight that.
I think that's a good point. And I feel like the thing we need to keep saying is that AI is too big to be good or bad. It's good and bad, right? And so it's not a one size fits all. It's like the internet, right? There are really good and really bad things about the internet. There's really good and really bad things about AI. And the thing that it is going to continue to show is intent. Like from prompting all the way to organizational, stakeholder versus shareholder intent. It is going to reveal that in some really important ways. I really love that we're taking May to talk about May I Be Human. And a lot of that is because, we're the human stack, we're looking at this. I also feel like success is often left out of the equation when it comes to technology and AI. And so I feel like unless we can get our heads around what does success even mean, we can't even ask the question or answer the question, what does better look like when we're talking about, do better before. And so I think that's a good question. I want to try out, if it's okay with you, I want to try out a new definition of success I've been working with. Something that
I love when Tim messes with definitions. Let's go.
Yeah. Well, no, this came up on the trip, but success is the culture and capacity to solve current and future problems with current and future tech. I think that's the framing for what success, like technology, maybe success, right? Which is another thing I've been playing with, but I know, I knew you'd laugh at that, right? But technology success at an organizational level is not about does the software work. It's not even about does the software solve problems. It is about the longevity of creating the culture and capacity for current and future problems and tech. I feel like that's been the missing piece. And so anyway, I feel like as we're talking about what does better look like, we have to start with what does success look like?
Yeah, no, I think that's fun, honestly, if nothing else. Like where things are moving. Like the way we define things are just not the same.
Yes.
Right?
Yep.
Like that's the biggest piece. And so I love it. And I think, I'll keep joking and making fun of you for it because we're going to keep changing that definition. We're going to keep massaging it.
Also, the speed of transition from current to future is happening at such a high rate now. And we are just at the beginning of what that's going to look like. For anybody that's paying attention to the Claude world, like 72-hour releases, right? Like this is
overwhelming.
So anyway, I love it. Yeah.
Should we get into it?
Let's do it.
All right. Well, I do want to talk about the human layer. And kind of like I've identified 4 human-only categories. As our regular listeners will know, most of the time I prep the episode and I wait for Tim to tell me what he agrees and disagrees with in live, which is super fun. And sometimes I'm like presenting what the research that I was able to do shows, and I haven't had the time to churn it either. So I want to be clear about that, Tim, because one thing that has kind of popped up in my life lately is as people are getting more literate, really, in AI, they're losing that check. And there's a difference between me prepping an episode and not deciding my opinion on or you know what I mean? Like me prepping an episode based on industry standards because I want people to see us massage this together versus me prepping an episode and having no idea what's to come. I've got some killer prompts that prep these episodes.
I know you do.
I'm gonna take everyone behind the scenes here for just a second because you haven't even seen this. I just made a production playbook. That's the code I was trying to put in our a little bit ago. But look at this. So every week I will be able to make it like here's our sorry, really behind this.
Cool. No, let's build in the open. Why not? This is so cool. This is great. I love it.
How fun is this though, right? Like
very fun.
When you can see how many times we don't do what I say we're gonna do. But this is just a nice like framing. That's the whole goal of it, right? And so this is what we're here talking about right now, which is, and it says Tim introduces, which Tim never introduces because Tim hasn't looked at it yet.
Ever.
So what I was just about to talk about, right, was the judgment calls, relational trust, cultural knowledge, and ethical discernment, things that I would argue, and it comes from my brain dump, the human stack, and like what we've developed over there, and just what's out there in industry standards for today, right? Like that's what we've got. That being said, there are times where all of those things come together and you and I still disagree, or it hasn't hit the nuance that we think it needs to. And so I think it's fun to show this one because I think it just looks so nice. So then I've got nice little cues really cool. for my lower really thirds, cool. like all of that stuff, but also just some nice, like, okay, so obviously you can tell this says we're supposed to be at this time code. We never follow time codes either, if you ever want to know. But I love this because one, it's a really nice, this is way easier to read than our Notion. I love Notion, but it's not in a nice viewable format. And it also helps me see like, okay, what are those main things that I was trying to get out of this block in a nice way, right? What if it's not about doing more? What if it's about doing better first, which is like the whole, like bring it all back around, right? And then we've got nice lead ins to the like, okay, what are good transitions if I'm not feeling like there's a good transition in front of me, just some of that stuff. I think this is so fun to see how much more I could do when we keep getting better at this. So just to show people, like, again, a little bit of like building live behind the scenes stuff, like that's what's on the screen that you see me looking at here. And then wait till you see the artifacts for today because they're cool as hell.
That's not the artifact? Oh my gosh.
No, that's just that's my new way of looking at the episode, so I don't have to stare at just black and white on Notion, which again, love, and I could do better, but the AI makes it pretty for me. That's the thing that I don't know how to do. I know how to create a killer episode. I don't know how to make it look pretty production note style.
You clearly do.
Well, I know how to make something else do it for sure.
Right. Yeah.
So onto that framework though, I do want to talk through and hear your thoughts on it, Tim, because I reviewed it a little bit again this morning before we hopped on, and those 4 areas, right? Judgment calls, relational trust, cultural knowledge, and ethical discernment, right? So examples for each category. Judgment would be choosing which grant to prioritize when you can't apply to both. Certainly something you can have AI help you with. You could even in some ways, like that one, I would probably argue that's one that I would say AI would make sure that I could apply to both, but that's a bit snarky. Relational trust, calling a major donor after a family loss. You can use AI to remind yourself of all of the things that your organization has interacted with that person, that family. Absolutely. Like remind me the things that I don't know as a new development officer who just met Tim Lockie, whose family member passed. What has this organization meant to them? Because I can add what our relationship has meant to them. But what can't be delivered in that same way is that call, like an AI call. I'm really sorry for you. Like that's a crazy thing to think. And it just doesn't feel right. I think one thing I'm catching with this framework is like, I could argue you could AI any of these, but it's where you should and shouldn't and why, right? Like a judgment call, those start to get gray on where you can and can't and where you should and shouldn't. Because honestly, I probably would let AI, I would have spent hours and weeks and days and like plenty of time making sure that my prompting and my agents were well equipped. But I don't have a problem letting an AI choose which grant to prioritize if I can't apply to both. I do have a problem, no matter how good I can make this call, sound like me, sound like a person, be empathetic. I would never feel comfortable having AI call somebody for me saying, I'm so sorry about your loss. Like, that is such a fundamental human thing for me. The other two, cultural knowledge. What's funny here is, like, again, the notes are like, knowing why a past program failed and what not to repeat. Wrong. I would actually rely, not wholly, but I would absolutely use AI for that.
Humans are terrible at feedback. Like, we're terrible.
But I don't think that's cultural knowledge. I don't even think that's the right definition for cultural knowledge.
I think it's the wrong example.
Yes.
I mean, here to play into the example that you have, knowing which call it is okay to automate, supposing that you can get Hey Jen or whatever to be good enough to do it, knowing which call to automate, judgment, right? That's a culture statement as well. Yeah. It's a judgment.
Well, it's all of those.
Exactly. Right. I think that's.
Ooh, I like that. That's our example. That'll be a fun. Right. Brain thinks in artifacts. I'm like, oh, how do I make that an artifact of, like, this example in all 3 parts of this, or all 4 parts of this framework?
But I'm going to say all of these are dynamic. Like, a year ago, I think you would not have said choosing which grant is something I would trust AI for. I mean, maybe you would have.
Yeah.
But
I struggle with, I mean, you know how I feel with agentic in general. Absolutely. So I struggle more than your average person.
Right.
On that in general. So I'm making assumptions that I have spent as much time that I think I would have to spend to trust it.
Well, and it's less about that. It's more about what context are you able to gather so that you feel like it's got enough information in order to follow intent, right? So again, it goes back to a judgment call on, does it have the right information to make this call? Which is a fluency. What is that? I cannot.
I felt like I didn't realize I was drinking it on camera. It's a pineapple orange. Little cold pressed probiotic juice shot. It's really yummy.
It sounds very good. It sounds like you used cultural dynamics and judgment to know to drink that. See how I just tied that in like so smoothly?
Because I hate the other ones that look this color, this icky green. But I looked and I saw that this had pineapple and orange in it, and I was like, you know what? That might be worth trying, and it absolutely was. So.
Okay, what's the 4th one? So judgment, culture,
ethical discernment. Ooh. They're very similar. Here, I'll share my screen here. I think this is supposed to be at a different spot in today's episode, but it's covering this framework, so I'm going to show it. Plus, again, it's super pretty. This would be like, I'm making these with our friend Dan Lombardi in mind, so I have better artifacts to hand off to him. So they all have this beautiful little print and save as PDF at the bottom. It's really nice. But judgment calls, relational trust, cultural knowledge, and the last one here, ethical discernment, when values and accountability are on the line. So the definition that we have based on industry here, decisions that require mission alignment, equity considerations, privacy weighing, or values-based judgment. Here's a few more examples in nonprofit work according to them. Whether to use donor data for predictive modeling, I think is a great... That is the sort of thing that requires all of those first ones. And then you have to use your own ethical discernment, right? Like, if I am Camp Gilbert, a camp for kids with type 1 diabetes, right? Like, what kind of predictive modeling, first of all, because there's a whole bunch of nuance in that. And second of all, they're kids. Third of all, it is very, like, as a data nerd, I'm like, I want to collect all of the data. I want to be able to use, you know what I mean? Like, this is a very real issue I wrestle with Camp Gilbert. Obviously, there's no predictive modeling necessarily set up with Camp Gilbert, but even just using AI to analyze the past year's data, trying to figure out how, and luckily we've got Google Workspace, and I actually do utilize the Gemini security there. And I don't obviously put any HIPAA information, but it's a great example. Balancing transparency with confidentiality in a board decision. I can't imagine how much I would have to train an AI to even get close to testing that, let alone ever rely. Like, these are great examples.
They are. There's, and because of the research work I've been doing for the last 4 weeks now on building a research platform, essentially, the level of granularity required for that level versus a good agent and like there are layers to AI that I'm hitting that I haven't seen before, and that like the if it can do it question is such an important part of all of this too. Like I'm thinking through I'm thinking through this and thinking about these four, and specifically I'm thinking, what's the difference between judgment and ethical discernment, right? And I think like just like high level, one is whether it's smart and the other one is whether it's right, right?
Yep.
And I don't know, did you ever watch Firefly? There's a great quote in Firefly where they decide to do something heroic, and the guy that's always wants to like get more money and is willing to kind of cheat to get it, right? He's like, well, if you can't do something smart, at least do something right. I feel like that's one of the funniest clarifications on right versus smart. But I think that's one way I'm framing that. You know, one thing that I was thinking even before you pulled all of this up that is truly human is a sense of what is beautiful. And I'm saying that because I don't know where that fits. Like there's something around like beauty is very cultural. I'm not thinking human attractiveness. I'm just thinking like right here, what you've built here. I've seen a lot of really crappy design. This is great, right? And so what is beautiful?
Well, and how many times have we had crappy design before we got to great,
Absolutely,
right? Like,
sure. Yeah.
And I will own those.
Yeah, and it didn't hold you back. I feel like that is I think that's a discernment piece as well on, you know, what does that look like? So what is beautiful, which I think falls into almost this work of humans and symbols, right? Like humans connect to things symbolically, not logically. We think we're logical and we are absolutely not. We are not at all. We mostly make decisions based on symbols that we've created for ourselves, right? So maybe that's cultural knowledge. I think the other one I'm wondering about is authenticity, which is almost a sublayer below all of this. Like if you don't know who you are well enough, you can do almost none of this because your intent is hidden from you. So your authenticity and self-awareness
100%
create the platform that allow these to happen. If that isn't present, if you don't have that level of self-awareness, I think this gets really confusing. Does that make sense?
It's so funny. I'm actually jumping around in where I was going to present things, but this is the first episode where I've said this a few times, but I feel like I've hacked these artifacts to work really the way I want them to.
It's so cool.
But to what you're saying, I think this is like the most simplistic, like 101 version of a decision tree here. And this, if you don't know the answer to this, if you don't have the self-awareness, to your point, if you don't have the self-awareness to know, and I'm going to giggle, you guys, because Tim needs to automate more in his life, and he needs this decision tree because
so bad.
This is the answer to his questions 90% of the time, which is fix the process first, right? Back to our workflow audit in Agentic April. I didn't actually make this with that in mind.
You know what's so funny about this? I'm just going to show you. I only have one written thing in my office. I have one written thing in my office. It's a little sticky note. It's right here. And it says, it's going to be way too small. You can't.
Wait. Let me move this. I'll hide our. I mean, as big as I can make, yeah.
It just says you can't automate what you're not doing.
Oh, wow! I'm honored.
So I feel like it's interesting. Also, for the last 2 days, I have been literally thinking in my brain, like I've got to have Sami's brain on this because I keep going meta. Like your comment, like Tim, you go meta too soon, is just like haunting me. Because it's so true. Yeah. So yes, I'm in the red box so often.
Which I think is also really important for our listeners to hear too, because people don't own that. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like There are blockers that we have being in this work that we don't realize, like, oh yeah, I forget that people are actually worried about losing their job to AI
Yeah.
because they don't have that same mindset of this means we can do more, we can do better. But similarly, they need to hear that the folks like us who automate and agentify and AI everything still struggle with some of the most
Oh my
fundamental
gosh.
pieces.
Can I give you an example of that? Literally from yesterday. I wrote
Yeah, because
these
I think it just
blurbs.
points to that self-awareness you're talking about,
Yeah.
right? Like,
Yep.
please do.
Okay. I'm doing this project with Hewlett Foundation. I'm going to be doing 18
Mhm.
different things with them. So they needed 18 blurbs. I like agented it out and wrote it out and was like, it was okay, but then there were a couple of things. And so I went me on it, right? I wrote one agent to make it better and another agent to evaluate. You're going to laugh so hard. I spent 5 hours, and at the end, the descriptions were so bad. And then I went back and looked at the
Mhm.
original ones, and they were great compared to the
Yep.
crap that I had spent 5 hours making.
Of course they
And
were.
I know what I'm doing with prompts, right? So it is it I was on a walk with Jenny after that, owning the fact that I had wasted 5 hours. But this is actually the way it goes a lot of times. And so it's one of the reasons that the question you're asking here is so important, right? One of them is when do you let good enough be good enough? And you have
Mhm.
really good discernment and judgment on that. And I have really bad discernment and judgment on that. Like it's just something I struggle with.
Well, because it's a constant balance of, like, the pursuit of perfection, right? And you have to enjoy the entertainment, the theater that is the aspiration of perfection, but you can't ever need it, and you need perfection. I
I
need,
don't even
"Oh, this is good
I
enough."
need perfection. It's just that I can't. The evidence is so clear, but I don't feel. It's kind of like I don't feel like I'm a perfectionist. I also don't feel like I'm competitive. I just hate losing. Right?
Yeah, perfect.
Exactly. Anyway, so I think that you're a really. I feel like this is your territory. You do this so well.
It's and part of it, and I will tell people because I have learned to accept and own that compliment, but it takes a minute because I see it as I am so willing to be wrong and so willing to be, like, made a fool of, whether it's my own or you know what I mean? Like, and that is a hard thing for people to understand, that one of the reasons I am very good at this is because I am okay admitting and massaging through the wrong. In fact, I actually find a lot of joy in that. I am in the minority in some of that, where, like,
Mhm.
there are folks that when you show up to a live stream for the 50-second episode and you wanna have everything perfect, and it's like, we popped a whole framework that I agree with, but I don't agree with the definitions. But I know where I pulled that data, I have confidence in my methodology, and I love teaching, and those 2 things allow me to be almost right every time versus worried about those times that I'm not completely right, if that makes sense.
It does, although
But
I
that
want to say,
self-aware, you could relabel this whole level, sorry, and then I'll let you come back here, but,
yeah, no,
like,
go for it.
this question could be, like, where is your level of self-awareness on how good you are at this task, who owns it, and what it does for your organization, right? Like, if you could trade that to, like, how confident are you on these 3 things? If you're not that confident, stop. Fix before you go back. But if you get to that 80%, and that's where you, Tim, either skip this completely or you want to get to 100%. Like, you refuse to, like, just settle for this is good enough. We can come back and fix it. Let's move on.
It's actually and this is what I was going to say is that, and the easiest way for me to say it is to talk about AI. There's an
What a
agent in
coincidence.
AI. I know,
This
right?
episode, this whole show, AI show. Go for
I
it.
know. Totally. So AI, there in the agent, you define who the agent is, but you define its skills separately and the tools that it can use separately, right?
Mm,
What part of that self-awareness that I think people miss is that you have to figure out what is skill versus identity. Like, which things are you never going to get better at?
Ooh.
I am never going to get better at getting out of the red box. No matter how hard I try, I can tell you right now, I will never get better at that. That is a delegate to someone who has that skill territory. And that is the other side of self-awareness. And the reason I want to say that is I am not afraid to fail either, over and over and over repeatedly. And I'm unconcerned about the fact that I get stuck in this red box every day, because that same skill is why I'm really good at the few things I'm really good at.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And it is that persistence and unwillingness to let go. Basically, that's why I started the human stack, is because I know there's a way that we can approach the way that we engage success differently. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems like perfectionism, and it probably is, but it's also why I'm able to do that work, and why someone like you is really good at this type of work. And so I feel like it's helpful, hopefully, for people to know some of this is built in and some of this is a skill that you can learn. Self-awareness on what's what for that is really important.
Oh, 100%.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And I do want to kind of leave us all with, for this week, I want to do a quick walkthrough with us on, this is the last artifact of the episode, which is essentially just like a little like audit template. So you're thinking about work, like automating something like we talked about last month. So you're thinking about like agentifying something. This helps you ask those questions about judgment, relational trust, cultural knowledge, or ethical discernment, and then decide whether or not at what parts can be automated, should be automated, or will be automated, right? And so I've got tester, I've got options for you, Tim. Do we do donor stewardship workflow test or grant writing workflow test?
Grant writing.
All right. Let me pull that one up, only because then I have. All right. So what?
I love the artifacts. They're great.
This one. I really like this one. Ooh, there we go. Okay. So we are going to audit a grant application process. And I've got some of these pre-written out, so it just goes a little quicker. I'm going to say we're a mid-sized education nonprofit, 25 staff. This is actually really close to what I was at DSU. So this is actually, or at Dakota State in Madison. So this is really good. I think we can all relate to this, right? Grant writers overwhelmed, applying to 40 plus grants a year. Want to see where AI can help speed up research and drafting without sacrificing quality or funder fit. Both things that are really hard for someone who's not living in AI to know how to train your AI to do. I think those are great.
Yep.
Anything to add?
No, I think that's good.
Awesome. Okay, so I'm going to crank through. I've got some steps that I think here. And I'm copying them as I talk about them, just because then I've got it just gives us a little bit more in here. But I want you to tell me if you think there's more.
Step 1 is do it perfectly. And if it's not perfect, don't go to step 2. I feel like that's just what step 1 should be.
No. Quit that. I've got researching, so if you're talking through how you, quick, get out of here. I was like, I was so thrown off by that for a second. I was like, what is he saying?
That's how you don't get out of the red box.
100%.
Yeah, no, these are great.
Because then he spins, and then here's where Tim gets into a loop that actually I do think a lot of people could learn from. So pause really quickly. It is okay to have AI check AI. In fact, we encourage it often. Tim gets so many AI layers in that it turns to shit. You heard him say it. You just said it, right?
I didn't say it that strong, but it's not wrong.
It is. I mean, and you're not the only one, but the episode or the example that you just gave is so fundamentally that it's easy to point to and be like,
absolutely. No, it's absolutely.
You should use an insular so when responding to an RFP, hallucinations are still possible, especially if you're responding to multiple RFPs with the same organization, yada, yada. You don't want it to pull things because your AI, thankfully, is holding memory, which you do want, but you don't want it to accidentally mix these two up. So find a way, whether it's through prompting or through a whole separate service, to insularly, in whatever the right word is there, say, here is the grant, here's the response that I have, audit it to tell me if something doesn't make sense, audit it to tell me XYZ, like audit it for these things. Say, I use the same AI to draft this and other responses, and I want to make sure there's no hallucinations. It'll look for those then. You know what I mean? Like, you can use AI in those ways, but if you don't recognize the limitations you're putting on yourselves by using AI for step 5, 6, and 7 to check step 5, 4, 3, you're just like, it's like the game of telephone.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right.
Okay, really quickly. Research potential fund. I just want to say this out loud so you can tell me if we're missing a step. Research funders, identify best fit opportunities, gather data on their organization or our organization, draft a narrative, tailor that narrative to the funder's specific priorities and language, create a budget and required attachments, internal review, maybe the executive director or the board review, final edits based on that feedback, submit the application, follow-up email to program officer if appropriate. Any thoughts there?
I am in awe that you can just think through a workflow like that.
Really? Talk to me.
I just think, again, I want to go back and just say, when you're really good at something, you don't know you're really good at it because you're just really 100%. Good at it. You're really good at this and not everybody is. I'm not somebody who is. So watching you do this is like really interesting, because this is not where, like, this is what I have a really hard time knowing how to do. I don't know how to break things
because I suppose when you need help, what I do is I make you sit on a phone call and I ask you all these stupid questions.
Right, yeah. And like, at the end, you've got like, okay, here we go. This is what, but it doesn't work that way in my brain, like for whatever reason. And you and I share a brain, but you got the whole
I got like the one side.
Yeah, exactly. You got all of this part. So
okay, I've got like 60 seconds before I need to let you go. So we're going to get through this.
Okay.
Human layer identification. And we don't have to get through all of this piece because there's no generate whether or not this is the thing. Like, it's still all your own discernment. But then what I did was I put all of those steps in the human layer identification. So then your first step is this a human only thing and why? And funny enough, my example is showing identify best fit opportunities as human only. I would so disagree. I think, so researching funder potentials, I think it's automatable. I would probably argue you could do both here. I do think there is judgment and cultural knowledge needed for this one, right? So requires knowing funder relationships, past rejections, strategic priorities, and just vibe, which vibe is the piece that I can't put in an AI. But I could use AI to get me so close.
Yep.
And frankly, if I'm in a small enough team, it would take time, but I could train AI to do most of this for me without needing much human in the loop, in my opinion.
Well, you could surface a lot of it so that the decision points are really small. Like the decision surface would become really, really small because of how little you need to do. You need to make one or two critical decisions and then turn it back over, right?
Yep.
So
what's really funny, Tim, is I didn't realize this when I was building this, but this is what I do when I go through these with you.
AI is very much a reflection of intent.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
Tailor narrative to funder, I put both because I would want to make sure that, like, the nuance of nonprofits, especially, there are times where AI, no matter how much information it has on my nonprofit, doesn't quite, like Camp Gilbert is a great example. They keep thinking we're like this medical camp. We're not really a medical camp. We just provide fun camp for kids with diabetes who have a medical need. It's a different thing, right? And so I would want to be able to, I would absolutely use AI to tailor that narrative, but then I would probably need to make sure that I read it, adjusted it, etc. Funny enough, it shows create, budget, and attach as automatable, and I would argue that just as much as tailoring the narrative, I would need to know that I've looked through that and double checked it. And then the last one that it has, so the rest of these it shows automatable, which a submit application, arguably you might not be able to just from the perspective of, do you have it?
Yeah, right.
Internal review, of course, like that is the natural human in the loop piece, right?
Well, okay. Internal review, would that include like typos?
I wouldn't think so. No, but I get what you're going
Okay.
with there.
Right.
I
So
think
I
there's
think
like
that there's
an
two
appropriate,
different,
yeah,
right? Like there's
you're right.
the does it say the right thing, and then there's the is it like structured the right way, spelled correctly, whatever.
Yeah, so I would probably say structural review, and I would definitely automate that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Follow-up email to program officer, I think should be done from your inbox. And so there are ways to automate that. But generally speaking, I don't see why you wouldn't use an automation, or we should probably say automatable or like AIable, because you don't necessarily need to automate it to what we're saying is half of the judgment in all of this is like, do you automate it or do you just use AI to do it? And where are you checking in? And then the goal is you end with like, if AI handles and here's all of the automatable tasks it can handle, then I can spend more time on X. And if that feels true, you're good. If it doesn't feel true, revisit this section, do it again until that balance feels true. And then it helps you decide, are those the right things to say? Eventually, I want to not have to worry about those. Those are workflows that I hit trigger and they go, versus I want to spend more time. And so that's where the spend more time on allows you with that judgment and the little bit of the ethical discernment of like, the follow-up email can be done by somebody else, but I may want to spend more time on that to make sure that it is more human, it is more genuine. I may want to spend more time on the tailored narrative, not because I don't trust AI to do it. AI can get me 80% of the way, but that is where I think the human touch is the most effective. And so I'm going to make sure all of these things are automated. So I'm not spending my time on those. I'm spending my time on the things that so that I can spend more time on X. So that's the so that
What
statement.
does that look like for a grant
generator.
writer? So like for a grant writer, right, there isn't a personal connection, unless I'm wrong. There's not a personal connection with the funder, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or is there?
I would say most of the ones you're successful in, you need a personal relationship of some sort. But
I guess the thing I'm saying there is like if
the personal relationship in that scenario, Tim, would be to the message and the mission. So it's less to the person.
Sure.
And it's, I want to spend time so that this person really understands the impact here. And the numbers and data will show it. But if only thing they read is my email, I want to make sure that that clearly communicates how important this grant would be to this mission. That's where that passion and that relational piece would come in my opinion.
I think that last box is interesting and would be better served if there was another part of this that said, what are the key things that move the needle on my job function, right? And if you identify what are the key things that move it that you cannot automate, or that if you spend more time and more attention, more humanness on, it moves the needle more, right? That's the replacement factor for better, is to really identify that. And the second thing I'd say is embedded in all of this is a stackability that is so natural to you, you don't even think about it. But there's a compounding nature of this, where if you do this and it works, and then you can rely on that, then you move to the next thing and you start stacking these layers. That compounding stackability is actually what works with AI, right? And I think that it's never about one workflow or one SOP or whatever. It really is about the net effect of learning how to do this in multiple areas, multiple times. Again, Absolutely. This is an area I really struggle with, because I find it really hard to identify and map anything out like that. But what I watch is people that do that really start saving time. It's not like I haven't done anything on that, by the way, but it's definitely behind the scenes. So I think this is really cool. I love the artifact as always. And I like that this is framed in really, how do you build an artifact that helps you focus on the things that are authentically yours to focus on. It's a great idea, as always.
Absolutely. Thank you. Before we sign off, next week, we're going to ask the harder question. What happens when happens to trust when your team can't tell who wrote the email, who scored the donor, or who summarized the meeting, which seem like low stakes things. And I'm going to be honest, for me, AI would have done at least the first draft of all of those things. So, but the difference between my AI and some of my peers' AI interpretation of those would be very different. And so I want to run a little like who wrote this test. I don't know if I can figure out like live polls on LinkedIn or something like that. I'm gonna figure that out. But if nothing else, I'm gonna make you do a live poll.
Cool.
And maybe I'll try and figure out how to have AI help me if I can find samples that then I can also be the test with you kind of deal, like blind test it with you. But yeah, I want us to get a little uncomfy and figure it out. So next week's theme's kind of with the May I Be Human. We're talking about trust falls. So yeah. I'm going to read Tim's line because he always forgets to pull up his notes, which is, if today landed, here's your assignment. Pick one workflow in your org and ask, what part of this is human only? Write it down, protect it. That's the layer that AI exists to serve, not replace.
There you go.
Stay curious, everybody.
Stay human.
See you next Wednesday.